Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Veronica Kazanjian-Babian, Associate Director in Alumni Relations and graduate from the class of 1995 from Thomas Jefferson University. I'm happy to welcome you to tonight's Finding Your Voice Talk. Alumna Ginny Palmieri, founder and CEO of VOCE Consulting, will guide you in understanding how to identify your gifts and bring them forward in both your professional and personal lives. Here is in the next hour, this is how the event will run. So we'll begin with Ginny sharing her presentation. Then we're going to split up into breakout rooms where you'll have a chance to network. And then the groups will come back, we'll reconvene, and we'll have time to have a discussion for the rest of the program. And just a few housekeeping rules. Please be sure to keep your mics on mute. We'd love to see you, so turn your videos on. Also, if you can add your full name to the profile, that would be great. And if you have any questions or comments at the end, you can ask them via the Q&A button, and I'll monitor them for you. Or you can raise your hand, and again, you can ask the question. You can ask that yourselves. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our featured guest, Ginny Palmieri. She holds a BA cum laude from Temple University and an MBA magna cum laude from Thomas Jefferson University, where she received that in 1995. Ginny held the role of Vice President of Commerce University, the Training and Development Center for Commerce Bancorp. Her background also includes leadership positions at Bank of America, Fleet Boston Financial, Founders Healthcare, Allegheny Healthcare System, and American Red Cross. Ginny has then enjoyed a 12-year career at Independence Blue Cross, where she was vice president and an officer in HR with a revenue of $17 billion. Following that role, she was vice president of specialty services for 7 years, achieving over $265 million in net sales. Ginny is a trustee of Thomas Jefferson University Hospitals on the Diversity and Inclusion and Student Affairs Committees. She is also on the United Way's Human Resources Advisory Committee, a member of the Forum of Executive Women, and a mentor. Ginny has also received honors including Thomas Jefferson University's Graham J. Littlewood III's Time, Talent, and Treasure Award, as well as Philadelphia Business Journal's 2017 Women of Distinction and PA Diversity Council for Most Powerful and Influential Women. In December 2015, she published her first book called Unspoken: Finding Your Voice and Living Your Authentic Life, which focuses on courage, transparency, and authenticity. Ginny, thank you for joining us this evening. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Veronica. And thanks to all of you for coming out tonight at 7 o'clock. I'm glad we're on Zoom tonight because then I wouldn't want to truck to a building right now. This is much easier. But as Veronica and I were talking about, I'm a high extrovert, so I'd love to give you a hug. But that's not going to happen either for God knows how long. So what I'd like to do is before I get into the presentation, I'm going to give you a little background as well. So as we move through this presentation today, I want you to keep two things in mind. Two things. One is to walk away with one nugget of information, not two, not five, not six, something that you can validate, learn, or execute on. And, we are in the middle of a pandemic. Texas is freezing over. God knows what's going to happen tomorrow. And it's really important that we focus on one thing that we can apply as we leave today or leave tonight. The second thing I want you to think about as we're moving through this presentation or engagement is, what's your gift? What's the piece that really makes you who you are? For me, it's authenticity. And it's taken years to refine, and I continually look into who I am to refine, authenticity. What does that mean? And to really be true to myself. So what's your gift? And we know that research and experience has demonstrated that when people are more authentic, they become better leaders and more politically savvy, and their voices become clearer and heard. Okay, so what I want to do is let me share my screen. So the overview of the presentation, I want to start with the courage to be authentic. Why be authentic and self-aware? How does that tie into finding your voice? Second, I want to provide and share with you stats on diversity of voice in teams. Why do we need to hear your voice? So it's not only a philanthropic priority for all of us, but then quantitatively, what's the impact of business? All right, the growth, the creativity, the productivity. How does that tie together? And then third, political savviness. So what? And how does that play into finding your voice and being able to deliver your message? And before I get started, so Veronica, you provided a great, I don't even know who that person is sometimes, but I'll take it, right? So, you look,
Fantastic.
thank you. I also would like to share with all of you a little bit about a little bit more personal, because I think it helps you to understand who you're seeing tonight. By most accounts, most people would say I've lived a charmed life. I was the only girl between two boys, an Italian family. You do the math. Okay. I was the Italian princess. I was daddy's little girl. And my father was a biochemist at Children's Hospital for 33 years. Unfortunately, he died at the age of 59. That's a whole nother book. My mom was a stay-at-home mom until I was 16. And then, as you probably have noticed, I'm Italian and I come from a very large Italian family. And why is this all important? All of that experience has taught me about the importance of having my voice and speaking up and getting your point across. And I will tell you, if I didn't speak up and I wasn't heard, I was not eating. Now, if you ever, has anybody ever watched My Greek Wedding or My Big Fat Greek Wedding? I'm sure many. Yeah, I see Nancy shaking her head. That's my family, Nancy. Okay. It's loud. Even my husband will say, I can hear you across the room or the house, not the room, the house. And I'm like, okay, all right. And even when my brothers and I get together, it's sort of funny to see who can be the loudest. So, I went through school. I had high expectations, high achiever. I was always the kid in the front of the class, raising my hand, pick me. Got married at the age of 24, had two beautiful children. Now, many think that I've had, they look at me and they say I've had an easy life. There's been no struggle, but we all know that no one escapes struggle and challenges. At the age of 59, my dad passed at the age of 59. And not only because he's my father and I was daddy's little girl, it was also so traumatic because he was my mentor. He was my role model. I'd come out of board meetings and I would be crying. I'd go back to my office and he would say, "Come on, Ginny, wipe those tears off. We can do this." And I'm like, okay. After 20 years of marriage, my husband woke up one day and said, "I don't want to be married anymore." Had two beautiful kids, and that was it. And then finally, as you heard, I've had many executive positions in both financial services and healthcare markets. And I have been one of the few executive women at the table where I knew my voice had to be heard, because it wasn't just about Ginny. It was about all the women and colleagues that I had, to make sure we all brought our voice to the table. So as you can see, I've been through a lot of changes, a lot of challenges. However, I believe that you have to embrace those challenges, learn from them, and how do you move forward? So now you heard I wrote my first book called Unspoken. I started my own company 3 years ago and left corporate America. And some people thought I was crazy. I am crazy, so it worked out really well. And then more importantly, this is my favorite, I got married in the middle of COVID. So in June of 2020, we were supposed to have a big wedding. I'm married to an amazing man. And if you want to see pictures, I can send those out later because they were interesting with the mask. And now we have 4 boys between the ages of 20 and 24. And why that's important is when you have all those boys home during COVID, they eat so much. Oh my goodness. I'm sure Merle has heard my stories, but oh my Lord. Anyway, so that's a little bit about who I am. So I have a professional life. I'm a mama. I'm an aunt. I am, I play multiple positions on the field, as I tell my kids. So now what I'd like to do is I want to move into why have the courage to be authentic. What does that all mean? So first of all, I want you to think about an environment of openness and trust, right? Imagine what that would look like. And with the research and the experience that I've had, and even interesting conversation I had this afternoon with the president of a large bank, was sharing some of her thoughts on how she creates this environment of openness and trust. There are 3 elements that I want to share with you. First of all, imagine a place where you're able to take calculated risk. Take calculated risk. Think about the times when you had great ideas and you didn't speak up. A place where you could actively think outside the box. All right. And most importantly, with outside the box, right now we sit in these Zoom calls. We may be in person in some cases, but creating this environment of openness and trust and having the ability to think outside the box not only helps yourself with the ideas, but it also helps an organization grow. All right. And bringing those ideas forward. And finally, this is my favorite, is challenging the status quo in a way that could be heard. The emperor should have clothes on. And we are in a lot of environments where people are afraid to say, hey, by the way, before you walk into that meeting, those numbers are wrong, or I really want to give you the right information. And so how do you create this environment? How do you challenge the status quo to then achieve diversity of thought and voice? All right. So again, finding your voice, understanding what your voice is, what the impact is and can be in an environment are all tied together. Now, you may look at this and say, okay, well, tell me more. Big deal. Give me some more to grab onto. Well, frankly, let me give you some stats that I share all the time, because I think it's really important that people understand the quantitative impact of having diversity. Diversity wins, voices matter, right? Why your voice is so important. McKinsey has completed a study with 1,000 companies and 15 countries, and this was done in 2020. And I will tell you that they update this report about every 3 years. So this is the most recent. And what they found was that companies in the top quartile for diversity are more likely to have returns above national industry. Racially and ethnically, 36% more. Gender, 25% more. All right. So again, philanthropic, it's the right thing to do. However, it also has a direct impact to the growth of an organization. And on top of this, Harvard completed a study in 2017, and they found that teams solve problems faster. And they focused on cognitive diversity, which is around inclusion of people who have different ways in thinking, different skills and perspective. And when you have that drives productivity and creativity. And I want to share, it was an episode of 60 Minutes. If you haven't seen this, I would highly recommend. 60 Minutes, about, I want to say it was a couple months ago, had kids and adults that were autistic. And what they have been doing is studying them to understand. Now, Google, Microsoft, and other large organizations are bringing in these kids because they have this ability to focus on detail, accuracy, and they're very good at looking at marketing, pricing, advertising to uncover mistakes and save companies a lot of money. So imagine a place where you're able to bring all these different voices to the table. It helps the individual as well as the organization. And I just want to take a step back and also say, diversity is cognitive, it's gender, it's ethnic. It's also, did you go to private school? Did you go to public school? Did you grow up in the suburbs? Did you grow up in the city? All of these things shapes the way that we see the world and impact us. I'm going to pause there for a second. Does anybody have any comments or questions so far? You see anything coming out of the chat room? We're good? Okay. Now, I will tell you, this next slide is a bonus information. I added this a couple days ago because, again, reading Harvard Business Review, if you do not get them as a subscription, digital, I don't get any payment from them, just so you know. They provided this study. It was communicated in February of 2021, so literally last month. And because we're in this environment where we're all on Zoom calls, Teams, and we're not in person, we don't get a chance to walk down the hallway and say, hey, Veronica, how are you doing? Nancy, how was your weekend? What are you up to, Merle? There's none of that going on. We jump on Zoom calls and we go, okay, what's the first agenda item? What can we do? Let's move on, right? There's very little chit chat. And what's happening is that's impacting the culture and impacting people and feeling comfortable and confident in sharing their thoughts and ideas. So the study, I just pulled out 3 tactics that I thought were really important, that there is a nugget of information you can take and use tomorrow if you're on a Zoom call. The first one and third one almost go hand in hand. They talk about adding small talk to either the front of the agenda, actually put it into the agenda, or at the end of the agenda, leave 10 minutes. Because if you do it in the beginning, everybody gets on, you can chit chat and see how people are doing. If you add it to the end, then people who are just like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to share. Okay, click, you're out of here. So it gives that flexibility. And the other thing that they shared was the start team meetings with individual check-ins. All right, so go around and ask how people are doing. There's no time today to do that. And that will help in people understanding, knowing, and sharing what's going on with them. Again, reinforcing who they are as a person. All right, so what I want to do next is I want to ask the audience, all of you. So I'm going to ask someone to share and think about this. Think about an example when you kept your mouth shut in a meeting. You had this great idea on Zoom, in person, I don't really care. And how did that make you feel? Did you recycle it? Did you change your behavior in the next situation? Or did you go back to your desk, fire off an email to your supervisor or manager or colleague and say, that was my idea and I should have said something. And the other part is, did you do it again the next time it came up? Does anybody have any examples they'd love to share with us? Merle.
So thank you, Jenny. You brought up something that I was going to ask you a question about, and that is oftentimes at meetings, Zoom meetings, board meetings, or committee meetings, I'll have an idea or I want to make a comment, but I just don't want to burst out, and I'm kind of waiting for the etiquette to be recognized by the chair to ask a question. And meanwhile, one of my colleagues will just kind of blurt it out and essentially raise the question or the point I was going to make. And this happens time and time again. So the question I have for you is, how do you balance being appropriate and kind of abiding by the rules, but at the same time, other folks will just jump in and kind of take that opportunity away from you? And I've thought about it many times, and I just don't feel comfortable kind of jumping in without being recognized. So how do you handle that?
That's a great question. And that is difficult because I find myself in the same situation. I've tried 3 techniques. One, and I don't know if you see me do this, Merle. One is I actually raise my hands in the emoticons, the icons that you can raise your hand. I do that, or I raise my hand in the video, or I do interrupt and shout. I'm like, excuse me. Actually, there are 4. And the 4th thing is I usually, like with our chair with the university, I'll send a chat to Steve and say, I have something to say. Could you please give me the floor? I would love to see if there's anybody else that has suggestions as well, because I don't have all the answers. I have 4 solutions, but Merle, it's even harder because, I mean, this is not about gender, but even as women, we tend not to be as forceful. It's human nature, and there's a lot of studies around that. And so it may feel really uncomfortable for you to do that, but you may have to force your way into the conversation. All right. It may feel forceful, but the reality of it all is someone else is going to say it, or it's not going to be heard, and you're losing that great idea. Would anybody else like to add or comment?
Ginny, we do have someone who did write into the chat. What if you aren't that person? What if you're the person who is always giving ideas and no one listens?
What if you're the person always giving ideas and never listening? So say more. Can the person come off of mute?
Hi, it's me,
Oh,
Shauna.
hi, Shauna. How are you doing?
Hi. So I tend to be I speak up a lot, and I feel that it goes the opposite way because I do speak up so much. They tend to just kind of fluff me off. So I guess I need to like I have a strong voice. I'm very extroverted, and I just feel like sometimes when I'm speaking, they're like, "Oh, here she is again." Like they don't listen.
Right. Well, I have used one of the things, and it also, I mean, there's a lot at play here, and I don't know all the dynamics. So let me just um, throw that out there. So one of the things that I use is a buddy system. Okay. So when I go into meetings where I have to get an idea across, and I've done this in Zoom and I've done it in person, what I do is have someone who's almost an ally who knows me, and I've actually positioned him or her or them in the meeting so that they can help with saying, "Hey, Ginny, can we come back to that idea? I thought that was really important." So if you know the agenda ahead of time and you have some ideas that you think that you're going to share, position that up front. But I also use, maybe there's a different term for the buddy system, but I use the system where I have people actually plan it in meetings, all right, to help me get my voice across. The other thing is, you could even talk to the person running the meeting afterwards and say, "Hey, is there another way I could have shared that information?" Because the other piece, and we'll talk about this later on in the presentation, is to get feedback. So I'm not in those meetings. If I was observing, I could probably give you better feedback or better insight. I always ask when I'm getting that, I say, you know what, let me go check in with some people and say, you know what, did you hear what I had to say? Was I not clear? Was there a different way I could position that information? So I think it's helpful to get feedback and do it that day or the next morning when people still have it top of mind. Okay. And the buddy system can also be used not only to help get your voice up, heard, but it also can help with ideas as well. All right.
Okay.
Because does that help at all, Shauna?
Yes.
Okay. We can talk offline. You can get my email. I don't have any problem. We can have a conversation.
Okay,
But I think,
great.
you have to see what works. Merle, the same thing. And especially when you're a group of like 20 people on a Zoom, it's like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? And sometimes it's really uncomfortable, but yeah, I mean, if you want that idea to come forward, you got to keep, somehow you got to get in there or go later on.
We've had someone else write in saying, I've just become more comfortable interrupting and not worrying what people think of me.
That's great. I mean, listen, if you're not sure, again, get feedback from other people and ask them, was that too abrasive? Was that too assertive? Was that, what could you have done differently? I know I'll say to Merle, every time I'm done a board meeting, Merle knows I'm not a wallflower either. And I do go back to people and say, you know what, did I position that okay? Did I say too much? And because it's uncomfortable, even for people who have a voice or feel very strong about their voice. And so, all right. So I am going to continue if everyone is okay with that. Does that work? Okay, great. So let me just say this. I know every day we have to take a holistic view approach to authenticity in both our professional and personal lives. Because remember, we live at work right now. We live at work. There's no separation of church and state right now. And we know in corporate America, we're taught to behave in a certain way. And that is acceptable. And right now, how we've been trained to work in corporate America is changing because now we're on all of these conference calls and Zoom calls. So you may have to be a little bit more assertive. And what you may be seeing as assertive may be nothing to the person who's, beside you on the square. Who knows? Second, also keep in mind where we fall in the family, on the food chain. Are you the oldest, the youngest, a middle child? All impacts our voice, our beliefs and our accountability. So we have to keep this in mind. We know every day that we are tested, and this is where choice comes in, and we need to leverage our village, take some calculated risk, and of course, stay true to ourselves. I would like that. Now we're going to go into breakout sessions because I want to focus on political savviness. Now I know, let me just call out, political savviness can be a dirty word. A lot of people dislike it. However, the reality to all of this is it can be seen in a positive way. It's not good, it's not bad. And that's what I want to go into next, because all of that shapes whether or not you are comfortable in taking your voice and bringing it to the table and sharing your thoughts and ideas. So the more you understand your environment, the stronger your voice will be. So political savviness is the ability to maximize and leverage relationships in order to achieve organizational, team, and individual goals. All right. So it's not supposed to be ugly and have a dislike, be disliked. So we have to keep this in mind as we go through this next exercise. So what we're going to do is Veronica's going to put us into 6 groups. We have 20 people on this call. All right. So we'll be broken down into 3, about 4 people in each group. And yeah, I have that number right. And so what we're going to do is group 1 and 2 are going to focus on question 1. Groups 3 and 4, question 2. Groups 5 and 6, question 3. Now, here's what I want everyone to do. I want everybody to take a screenshot or a picture of this page right now. Take a picture so you have the questions. You're going to be broken down into subgroups. All right. And then what you're going to do is when you get into your subgroups, because one of the pieces around this alumni relations experience is that you're networking with each other as well. So I want you to do introductions. I want you also to designate a spokesperson who will then report out on the question that you're accountable for. Now, what I also expect is everyone we'll discuss all 3 of them because they all go together, but you'll be accountable for reporting out on the one for your group. Now, I will also tell you, depending on time, we will have one person report out from each question. And then I'd ask that if something isn't said, that whoever is not reporting out puts it in the chat box so we can capture that information. Okay. Does anybody have any questions before we break out? We're going to take about 8 minutes to do that. Any questions? Good. All right. All right. So Veronica, you want to break us all out to 6 groups? Thank you. I'll see you in a little bit.
Okay.
All right. Are we all back?
I think so, yes. So just to let you know, Ginny, we can have representation from room 2, room 3, and for the final question, room 5 or room 6. Or if you
all right, so why don't we, all right, so let's just go with question number 1. Does anybody want to take that one? Who's our spokesperson?
For group 2, I can be the spokesperson.
All right, Liz, take it away.
So we went through the way that we did it. We introduced ourselves and then we individually just explained what we thought our definition of political savviness was. So Dr. John Devine, he expressed that he tends to be a listener, and he felt that one must be a listener and a watcher. And he enjoys to read the room, expressions, and body language. And he remarked how it's difficult to do on Zoom, and because he's in healthcare, he's in person with whomever he's working with, but it's also hard with masks on because you lose a lot of the facial cues.
Oh, that's a great point. I forgot. Yep. I hate wearing a mask. I'm sure everybody else does too, but I wear 2, just so you know. So thank you for sharing that, Liz. Thank you and your group as well. How about question number 2? What specific situation? I won't put the group I was on on the spot, but anybody else for number 2?
Liz, can I? Pardon me, Ginny. Can I stick up for my group? Liz and our other group member, whose name I forgot. I'm sorry.
Nikki.
Also had some great points.
Nikki.
Nikki, yes.
Are you? Oh, John, I'm sorry, John. You're the one. You're on the train. Sorry about that. So are you? Is there additional comments? Because what you just shared was really great. Are there additional comments that Nikki and Dr. Devine would like to share?
Yeah, well, Nikki, I can go ahead and whatever I wrote down, I can remark on that. So she said she had agreed with you that, like, go into meetings with a light atmosphere, try to get a sense of the people that are in the meeting, and then also when it gets to the point of express or of talking for yourself, make sure you stick up for yourself and communicate. And then my viewpoint on what political savviness was balancing, group mission statement and leveraging that with, the individuals that are actually carrying out the mission of the group. So making sure that you're celebrating all of the individuals while trying to move the needle forward.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, it sounds like you had some really intense conversation in that group. I love it. I love it. Who else from group number 2? We have a minute for each group. I know Veronica, we are running a few minutes behind. I'm not sure how that happened, but okay. So group number 2, Christine or Tracy. I guess Tracy, do you want to share an example of a specific situation that you had to that you experienced with political savviness?
So sure. So Christine and I talked, and we had a really quick conversation. I work in city government, and she works as an auditor. We both agree that political savviness is basically um, controlled by the person or exhibited by the people, for the most part, who have the power and or the skill set to utilize that power to advance the missions and operations in order to get the job done. So I was talking about how, I have to use political savviness every day in my role as a, as a C-suite person who works in city government. Because a lot of times constituents, they send their complaints or their issues up through their elected officials, their representatives, their local council person, and sometimes it's escalated to the mayor's office. So then it bounced back to me, and then I have to kind of smooth things over with the constituent, to appease the situation, but also have to hold my supervisors and employees accountable for their actions.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you. Group number 5 or 6 for question number 3. Do you feel political savviness is important to your career? Why or why not?
I think I was explaining that in my DNA, had an Irish mother, that I am a natural storyteller. So I find that currently, the past 15 years, I work for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in CMS. So I think the question of political savviness, when I was recruited, I didn't apply for the job. Someone knew my work prior to going to CMS, and I was really hesitant because of the layers, the bureaucracies, and, it doesn't meet my personality. Plus, I'm a storyteller, which seems to be more of an annoyance. But as far as patient care, it does move the needle for what professionally I feel that has to be brought to the table. And I'll be relentless to be an advocate for. I work in a program with the frail elderly, so I'm relentless with that. But I definitely, after 16 years, I can say that political savviness is the absolute. It's just, I've learned to be a better listener and calculate, if you will, when I feel that my voice will be heard. But it's also made me work smarter with using data, collecting it to prove my point. And even sometimes, if the higher ups don't have the education or experience, and potentially, I would say, threatened by you.
Right. Okay.
So, but anyway,
Okay.
I'll offer up one of the other people on the team job movement with experience. So I don't know whether you want to add something to it.
Well, unfortunately, I have to move on, and I do appreciate that feedback. I want to make sure we're ending at 5 of, and I really appreciate the participation with the questions. So thank you. Thank you for that. So what I'd like to do is let me just quickly go back to the presentation. All right. So we talked about this political savvy and leadership, sometimes controversial. It's natural, neutral part of the workplace, and it's neither good nor bad. And I want to share with you 4 steps in order to become more politically savvy. I think this is really important. This is from the Center for Creative Leadership, CCL. I'm not sure if you've heard of them or not. They're a great resource of information as it relates to development, teams, strategy, etc. So first, I want to wrap all of these steps in around with intentionality. So whenever you are focused on anything, frankly, but specifically political savviness, being intentional is really important. So first, one of the things that we talk about is networking, being effective and strategic at networking within the organization. All right, because that will help in understanding the environment. Second is watch how people behave around you that are effective, because you can learn a lot. I think it was Dr. Levine that said, I listen a lot. I see what's going on around me. That's scanning your network. Be in the moment. Watch what's going on, the verbal and nonverbal cues. When someone has a mask on, it's a little bit different, a little bit more challenging. Third is think before you act. Slow down to speed up. Really focus on what's going on. Right? Because that's really hard. Even again, we were talking about being in these Zoom meetings, coming in and out. It's really important that you think before you act and really stay present. And finally, inspire trust and confidence. One of the things that I absolutely know is when words and actions are consistent, people do trust you. All right. And it really is about, when you understand your voice, you understand, who you are as a person, what your message sounds like, and you are clear and consistent, that will then inspire trust and bring your voice to the table. It has been validated in research as well as in experience that I've had over a course of 25 years. So I want you to remember this, that political savviness is not good, it's not bad, it's neutral. It's not a zero-sum game. And it really is about understanding the use of your skills and behaviors and qualities to be effective and sincere. And in summary, I want to leave you with these 3 thoughts. What does your most successful self look like? What's your gift? Imagine what Oprah said. I listened to her master class today, and she said, "You are who you believe." All right, and I truly believe that. You have to envision, what does that look like? Second, political savviness, critical or not, that's really up to you. And third, bringing your whole self to work, having the courage to be authentic, and creating an open environment, your voice will be heard. You will become a more effective leader and also be more politically astute in a way that works for you. Again, in a way that works for you. And I know it's not easy, but we all know we grow the most when we are uncomfortable, unfortunately. And remember, all the answers are in you and around you, within you and around you, but you must turn the key to open the door, because you never know what you're going to find behind it. So I thank you for your time. I know that what time is it? It's 7:53. So we have a couple minutes if we want to just go to all of us and see if there's any questions. I thank you for your time. I would have loved to have more dialogue. Unfortunately, an hour goes by like this, as you know. And Christine and Tracy, it was great getting to crash your team or your group. Thank you for that. But does anybody have any questions, thoughts, or ideas that they want to share with the group? Was this helpful? Do you feel like you have that one nugget of information that you can take away and apply, even if you don't get caught up in political savviness? Or maybe now you're going to have 10 minutes at the end of a meeting to help people get to know each other. So, thoughts? None? Okay.
I would just want to thank you. Are we allowed to do that?
Oh, Sure. You don't want to share anything? Is there anything like words of wisdom you want to share with us?
Oh my goodness. I'd like to think I'm wise, but I might not be at this moment.
Well, it's funny because I consider myself a curious creature. I'm constantly learning. And I really believe that every day it's a new opportunity. And you take out of life what you put in. And my grandmother used to say, she passed about a year ago. She was 98. So my husband's like, I think you're gonna live live longer than me. I'm like, yeah, I got that. Don't worry about it. Just make sure you get to 80 for me. Anyway, but she said life is a big circle. And I'm not kidding. Every day we're working on our voice. We're working on what does that sound like? Because it's getting harder, frankly. It's harder. But let's just acknowledge that it's not easy, and that's okay. But let me tell you, my book around unspoken, Have a Village, because there is no way I would have gotten through my major life challenges without my village. Not happening. So thank you, Liz.
Yeah,
Anybody else?
thank you as well. I just wanted to say thank you as well.
Oh, you're welcome, Tracy. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, it's very helpful.
Thank you, Ginny. It was a great discussion, and I really appreciate you bringing all of this to the forefront and having this set up so that there could be some discussion within the participants.
Great. Well, you spend an hour and we don't just get to put our hair, keep our hair down, right? And, it's important that you network. You cannot, some people are like, they stopped networking over the last year because of COVID. You can't do that because you never know when you might need some advice and counsel, or maybe you're looking for a different job or whatever that looks like. Do I have time for another? Oh, I have no time. Never mind. I always have stories, but I'll save that for the next time. So anyway, Veronica, I will leave it up to you.
Feel free, Ginny. Feel free to tell us the story. We love hearing it.
All right. Well, she gave me the floor. You can shut down. So I'm going to show my age here. 20 years ago, I worked at a school for neglected and abused children. I was the head of HR there. And when I left, I hired this woman who now works at Vanguard. About 2.5 years ago, I'm doing a presentation. She's like, I know you. And I'm like, oh my God, I know you. She's like, you hired me to replace you 20 years ago. I'm like, get out of here. Anyway, fast forward, my son is graduating in May with finance and a technology background. He's interested in Vanguard. Now, in full disclosure, he's like one of those kids that's an overachiever. I wonder where he gets that from, but okay. Anyway, so I reach out to her and say, hey, Karen, can you at least get him an interview? Like, do you know anybody? Because I do not get people jobs. What I do is I get their resume to the top of the pile because I can't sell someone. I only know people to connect them with. So she meets with him. She's like, oh my God, he's only 21. He's like an old man. He's like 40 in a 21-year-old body. Anyway, so all this to say, my son's like, Mama, how do you know this woman? I'm like, you're not going to believe this. So you never know what life is going to hand you or the connections. And I believe, like I said, my motto is words and actions have to be consistent. That's why people trust me, because they know what I say is what I'm going to do. And if I don't do it, I'm probably sick. Anyway, so that was my story, Veronica. Bye. Oh, there's something in the chat box here. Oh, thank you. You're welcome, Christine.
I feel like we can listen to you all night. Thank you so much, Ginny. We really appreciate your time. And thank you to everyone who was able to attend and to give their thoughts and share their stories. We really appreciate it. I'm just going to share a slide with you.
Great.
You'll have an opportunity to complete a survey afterwards, and this recording will be sent to you within the next 24 hours. And it's also going to be up on our Jefferson Alumni YouTube channel. So feel free to come back and watch Ginny give her presentation and listen to her stories. We really appreciate everything that she's done for us. And so just a little bit of some announcements here with some upcoming events. We've got on March 9th, on Tuesday, March 9th, we've got Policy Over Party, discussing the legacy of Senator Arlen Specter. On Wednesday, March 10th, we've got Women and Money, On Monday, March 15th, we've got Trust Your Gut, which is discussing the things you must know about colorectal health. And then on Thursday, March 18th, Setting the Scene, Tips from Hollywood. And that's offering design ideas for your own homes. So you can sign up for any of these events and even more at jefferson.edu/alumni events. And you can also follow us on our social channels, find out more about our upcoming events and alumni information. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, in addition to our Jefferson webpage. And lastly, we're really excited to introduce to you our new Jefferson Alumni Network platform. Get connected by visiting alumninetwork.jefferson.edu, where you'll have the opportunity to connect and network with Jefferson, Textile, and PhilAU alumni based on name, major, class year, specialty region, and more. Thanks again, everyone. Thank you, Ginny. Really appreciate your time. And thank you to everyone who joined us. Have a great
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.